Cuba and Russia celebrated their relationship as the Russian foreign minister visits Havana. New British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is welcomed to his new role with protests. And the Chilean Teachers Association has brought its strike to an end after 50 days. Hello and welcome to Telesur. I'm Carla Gonzalez from Quito, and this is from the South. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is in Cuba on a two-day official visit. He met his Cuban counterpart Bruno Rodriguez, and at the beginning of the day, spoke to the media.
We thank the support of the Russian government, its parliament and its people in our struggle against the unjust, obsolete and genocidal economic and financial blockade imposed by the United States on Cuba, a flagrant violation of international law. I've told Foreign Minister Lavrov that the Russian people and the government have and will continue to have the support in their own rejection of the unilateral and arbitrary sanctions that our sister nation has endured since 2014. We are convinced that even under these difficult international circumstances, our history and our special relationship will continue to grow stronger in the future for our mutual benefit.
We salute the strength of the Cuban people who have withstood all the difficulties of the economic sanctions, and in spite of these they have achieved new successes in education, in healthcare, and as I said, we will continue to stand by Cuba and the Cuban people, defending together the principles of justice and international law that are in the United Nations Charter.
Our correspondent in Havana, Fabiola Lopez, has more on Lavrov's visit.
I am outside the Cuban Foreign Ministry, where the foreign ministers Bruno Rodriguez and Sergei Lavrov have just been holding a news conference after their first official talks. Both ministers said they had discussed the strategic character of the relations between the two countries. They noted their firm agreement on the need to defend international peace, as well as their desire to develop further the cooperation between Russia and Cuba. Sergei Lavrov said Russia is stepping up its solidarity with the Cuban people against the blockade imposed by the United States, while Bruno Rodriguez said Cuba offers Russia the same solidarity in the face of the sanctions it faces. In relation to Venezuela, Lavrov said it was ridiculous that some people argued that countries in the East should not have relations with countries in the West, a reference to the Monroe Doctrine. And he said you only have to look at a map to see all the places that the US has military bases. Rodriguez said the United States is trying to conceal the failure of its policies in Venezuela and that Cuba will stand by the Venezuelan people, whatever threats it receives.
Fabiola Lopez from Cuba. And cooperation between Cuba and Russia has been growing in the last few years. So let's take a look at those numbers. Russia is playing an active role in Cuba's plan for economic and social development to the year 2030. In 2018, trade between the two countries reached a value of $388 million. That was 34% more than in 2017. Russia has helped Cuba set up assembly lines for gas and Ural vehicles, which in the future Cuba may export to third countries. And tourism is also a growth area, with more than 137,000 Russian tourists visiting Cuba in 2018. In other news, the governor of Puerto Rico, Ricardo Rosselló, is expected to resign following massive protests against his administration, according to local media. Protesters have made it clear they won't stop until the governor leaves office. Puerto Rico has been calling for Rosselló's resignation for over a week after a leaked social media chat revealed his misogynistic and racist messages. He has already stepped down as leader of the new Progressive Party and is expected to be replaced by Justice Secretary Wanda Vázquez. The neoliberal party has pushed an agenda of privatization in Puerto Rico and is presently embroiled in a corruption scandal. And we're going to try to speak to Rafael Bernabe on the phone right now. He's in front of the governor's mansion at the heart of the protests. Let's see if he can listen to us. Hello, Rafael.
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Yes, could you describe the situation at this moment in San Juan?
Yes, right now there are hundreds of people in front of the governor's mansion. Last night there were many people as well, and the rumor was spread that the governor was resigning today. Many people were expecting that after the gigantic march last Wednesday, he would resign today before 12. It's already 12, and he hasn't resigned yet. So people are resolved to continue the struggle until he resigns. But we're still expecting word from the governor. He hasn't said anything during the whole morning. So as I said, people are happy that he will probably resign today, but they are very much on guard in the case that he does not, to continue the struggle tomorrow. Already for tomorrow at 9 a.m., we have a big march called. We hope it's going to be a massive march. It's starting the financial district here in San Juan, which we call La Milla de Oro. And so we are expecting a lot of people tomorrow if he persists in not resigning.
So what do you expect to happen in Puerto Rico if he does resign?
Well, if he does resign, I think the people who have been on the streets are very much conscious that this is only the beginning of a process of political and economic change in Puerto Rico. People understand quite well that the governor has been pushing policies which are defended by his party, that probably his successor in his office will try to continue those policies, and people will continue in the streets to fight against those policies. We also have the situation that Puerto Rico has a very complex debt crisis, which is being managed by a board appointed by the U.S. Congress, a board which is imposing terrible austerity policies on Puerto Rico. And many people are saying that we have to continue the struggle that we have led against Rosselló, that we have to continue that struggle now against the policies of the federal board, which, as I said, is taking many decisions that normally would be taken by the Puerto Rican government and now taken by this board. So the struggle will continue after he resigns. And one of the wonderful things that has happened as a result of this process is that literally hundreds of thousands of people who had never in the past participated in social struggles, in mobilizations, in protests, in marches, are very much activated now, have had the experience of being in the streets struggling, and that will be carried over to other social struggles in Puerto Rico. So we feel that the elimination of Rosselló from the governorship is going to be the start of a new chapter in Puerto Rico's economic, social, and political history.
And Rafael, if it comes to a new election, for example, could that change the idea, the whole program, the neoliberal program that Puerto Rico is under?
I didn't quite understand what you said.
So
there's too much noise here.
Yes, if Rosselló resigns, could new elections change the neoliberal program that Puerto Rico is under?
Yeah, that's our hope, and we are working towards that. One of the things that I belong to a movement called the Movimiento Victoria Ciudadana, Citizens Victory Movement, is one of several new movements in Puerto Rico, which basically have an anti-neoliberal agenda and an agenda for the decolonization of Puerto Rico. And as I said, there were many people who in the past looked with somewhat, they didn't see much viability in the new political movements. But as a result of this terrible crisis, both major political parties are no longer major political parties. They have really lost much support from the population, and people are looking for new alternatives. And we hope that the unity that we have forged in the struggle against Rosselló, unity of the labor movement, of the women's movement, the environmental movement, and so on, all of these movements will come together in new political alternatives to revert the neoliberal policies that we have been suffering from for decades.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Rafael, for your insight on what's happening in Puerto Rico.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Rafael Bernabe from the Citizens Victory Movement. And now we go to another topic, Venezuela. It's conducting the Simón Bolívar Liberation Campaign 2019 military exercises in defense of its sovereignty. The drills mark 236 years since the birth of Simón Bolívar, the Venezuelan military and political leader who liberated territory which would eventually make up 6 modern countries. They also celebrate 196 years since the founding of the Bolivarian Navy. President Nicolás Maduro said that Venezuela is testing arms in order to defend the territorial integrity of the country.
The first exercises this year were held to mark the bicentennial of the Angostura Congress. 200 years ago, on the 15th of February. This is the second military exercise we've conducted this year. This first phase begins to mark the day of the Bolivarian Navy, and the Navy is going to be the vanguard of these drills from the 24th of July until the 28th. When you see these images, that discipline, that professionalism, that unity, that cohesion, that morality, that loyalty, that military capacity, you see that Venezuela has a powerful base for what it needs, which is simply peace and sovereignty. Peace with independence, peace with self-determination, peace with equality, peace with democracy, peace with freedom, peace with the people, peace with prosperity and social contentment. Peace. Venezuela is defended, and that's shown here.
And on Monday, Venezuela's power grid suffered a new attack that left a large part of the country without power. According to the government, it was of an electromagnetic nature coming from an unknown source. That was the probable cause of this latest incident.
After the power went out in Venezuela at around 4 p.m. local time, contingency plans were put in place to prioritize citizens' needs. In Caracas, alternative transport was provided for everyone who usually relies on the metro.
This was a political sabotage, nothing else. They're trying to sabotage our government. They want to paralyze Venezuela, but they are not going to win. As Venezuelans, we are working people, and no matter what, we will move forward.
In the face of this latest attack, the authorities put into motion a new system to return power to the country as soon as possible. The system that was first developed after the previous round of attacks in the power grid back in May.
The Bolivarian government has implemented protection protocols, which allow us to confirm we are in the process of restoring power, and hope to finish doing so in the shortest time possible. As such, we have activated contingency plans to provide transport and water for all citizens, as well as to provide all necessary aid to hospitals and health centers. We have also deployed security forces to guarantee the peace and safety of all citizens.
Power is being restored in stages across the country. As a precautionary measure, the government cancelled school and work on Tuesday. So far, this is the fourth electromagnetic attack against Venezuela's power grid. Back in March, Venezuela suffered a massive blackout as most of the country went dark for 11 days in a row. Following an investigation, the government provided proof that this had been a coordinated attack on the Guri hydroelectric plant.
We'll go to Sudan after the break, where hundreds are demanding justice for students killed during protests. Stay with us.
Who's moving the chessmen? What interests motivate the actors behind each event?
Se despliega el tablero.
Uncritical Moves investigates every event from Monday to Friday. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Let's continue with news. Boris Johnson has become the new British Prime Minister after Theresa May officially handed in her resignation. Protests against British Prime Minister Boris Johnson began even before he officially took the reins of the UK. Greenpeace activists interrupted the controversial New Conservative Party leader on his way to meet the Queen at Buckingham Palace, demanding that he place climate change at the top of his policy agenda. The anti-Brexit activist group led by donkeys projected an image of the incoming Prime Minister onto the Buckingham Palace facade, calling him a liar. Johnson has come under fierce criticism for his egotism, racism and duplicity. And protests against both the new PM and the Conservative Party also took place in the Scottish city of Glasgow after he won the party leadership. The radical Scottish independence activist Tommy Sheridan called for a general election, saying there is a democratic mandate for a second referendum on Scottish membership of the UK.
The next leader of the Tory party is, they don't have the right to determine who the next Prime Minister is. There needs to be a general election. There needs to be another general election. And my appeal to the SNP, to the wider Yes movement, is that at that general election, they've already said that although we're in a voluntary union, they're not going to allow us to have Indy Rev 2. The SNP won the general election in 2015 in Scotland. They won the Scottish election 2016 in Scotland. They won the general election again 2017 in Scotland. There is an existing democratic mandate for Indy Rev 2. It has to be used. It has to be used.
Cabinet-level resignations are expected as Johnson assumes office. The Justice Secretary David Gauke has handed in his resignation in opposition to a no-deal Brexit, with more high-profile politicians expected to follow suit. The South African opposition party, the Economic Freedom Fighters, is set to celebrate its 6th anniversary this week. The EFF will celebrate its anniversary on July 26, 6 years after the party was formed in 2013. Party leader Julius Malema has been traveling through the South Africa's provinces, addressing supporters ahead of the occasion. The party is well known for its land reform policy, calling for land appropriation without compensation.
This is Commissar Muzikoza, the new elected Secretary General of the EFF Students Command. Let us lastly wish the EFF their 6th anniversary birthday that will be hosted in Nganyamazane Stadium, Mpumalanga. We wish the EFF many more years, which will display a high level of unity and joy, peace and happiness. Let's call upon all South Africans to attend and listen to the address by the Commander-in-Chief, the President.
The Ugandan musician and politician Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, popularly known as Bobby Wine, has officially announced his intention to run for president. Bobby Wine said he's ready to challenge the current leadership in the Ugandan election due to take place in 2021. He is currently a member of parliament representing Uganda's central region. He will be running for presidency as an independent candidate.
Such as this one. The people of Uganda, I am challenging you to a free and fair election in 2021. While we unite, we must remember that our people are already united. Our people are united by their pain. Our people are united by their separation. Our people are united by the challenges they go through every day.
Hundreds of Sudanese university students rallied in Khartoum, demanding justice for fellow students killed in the months of political unrest. As riot police were deployed in the area, students chanted, "Blood for blood, we don't want compensations," while holding photographs of students killed over the past 7 months. The rally follows wide discontent with a power-sharing deal signed last week between protest leaders and the military, as negotiations have yet to address accountability for those killed since December.
The martyrs of the Sudanese students who died, who gave their life for this country, and who were so adamant to see a change. Today, this demonstration, this process comes in their memory, and also to tell the authorities that we have missing persons, and they should be known, their whereabouts, where are they? And also this is the right of their families, to know their whereabouts.
Still to come, Israel faces international condemnation for demolishing Palestinian homes. Don't go away.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. Telesur documentaries. Sundays. Only on Telesur.
Thank you for joining us again. The Chilean Association of Teachers has ended their national strike after 50 days. Association President Mario Aguilar says they decided to put an end to the strike after a consultation showed that over 67% of teachers wish to stop the strike and instead want the association to focus on developing an action plan. Chilean teachers were staging a strike for almost 2 months after the government of Sebastián Piñera refused to address their demands.
With the strike, we have hopefully taught a lesson to this arrogant elite that they must betray us with a different attitude. The government did want to have a dialogue with us, and only by the 4th week of the strike, they decide to sit down for talk with us. This is the explanation of why this strike lasted so long, because of the arrogance of the government. They did want to talk to us.
International bodies are condemning Israel for tearing down Palestinian houses considered too close to a segregation wall in the village of Surbaher. 16 residential buildings have been targeted to the south of Arab Jerusalem, holding around 100 apartments. Israel proceeded with the demolition despite international criticism after the Israeli Supreme Court agreed with the military that the buildings pose a security risk. Palestinians argue that the move is part of Israeli colonial policy, which seeks to build more illegal settlements on Palestinian lands. And the United Nations has said it laments this decision and has condemned the demolition of these homes by the Israeli government.
We, as member states of the European Union, strongly condemn the demolition by Israel of Palestinian buildings in the district of Wadi al-Hummus in the southeast of Jerusalem. We remain seriously concerned by the continued demolition of Palestinian property by Israeli authorities. In all but the most exceptional circumstances, demolition in occupied territories is contrary to international humanitarian law and to UN Security Council resolutions. The practice causes unnecessary suffering to ordinary Palestinians, and it is harmful to the peace process. In this specific case, the demolitions were particularly egregious, as a number of the buildings were located in areas A and B under the jurisdiction of the Palestinian Authority according to the Oslo agreements, and thus constitute a violation of those agreements. They set a dangerous precedent that directly jeopardizes the two-state solution. Thank you.
And Telesur is celebrating 14 years of broadcasting, making the struggles of the people visible and connecting the global south. So we leave you with this video to celebrate our anniversary. Enjoy.
The voice of rebellion in our... We were born with a star to follow, with a symbol of freedom in our genes, with a voice of rebellion in our throats, with the sword of truth in our hands, a sword that doesn't wound but wins in battle. We have grown, breaking the